a hot day today. No, it really is, man. You're like, I wanted to warm up. I was like, man, today's gonna be hot. Real quick, I see these guys in Belgium sometimes. There are birds that have 11 primary feathers. Do you believe that there's an advantage to having 11 primary feathers? Notice that the industry standard is 10. So what is your take as far as having a bird that has 11 primary tips?
I think nature's got it right. I think 10 tips is just the right balance. I think having a bigger oar requires more muscle and more stamina. So maybe in a short distance might be okay, but if it gets a little tough, the bigger oar is more demanding on the pigeon. Well, I've had them over the years and I've never seen an advantage. I've never seen a disadvantage, but I've never seen an advantage.
So as far as your birds during racing season, you do cut the 2 primary feathers?
No, I don't find that necessary.
I've heard of that before. You have to be careful because you could actually damage the
You can damage the quill, yeah.
These are very important things that as a new flyer, sometimes you don't realize.
So when you got a young bird and you wean them over and you got them under the lights, the proper way. Now you see this bird don't have a step, by the way?
No, it's like a full
straight across.
Straight across wing.
Okay, so this isn't a fast wing. This is what I consider to be a middle distance wing. Getting back to the young birds, when you wean them over and they're under the lights, they start dropping the flights first. When they're in the dark, they hold the flights and drop the body. So we prefer that they drop the flights first, so we put them under the light.
Gotcha.
Okay? So now when they start dropping the flights, you have to wait until they've got the second tip about that high. Now you see this is the first tip?
Yep.
This is the second tip. When they're that high, that means that the wing follicles are all mature. And then you can just pull them out and nothing's gonna happen. If you're pulling them out and they're on the first flight or didn't drop any flight, you'll damage the follicle because it's not mature yet. When you pull them out, the follicle will be on the end of the flight, all blood and everything.
Right.
So if you wait till they're at this point like this, and then you're pulling them out, they come right out like butter. So you don't have to cut them. This is very important. A lot of things that people do with pigeons, they do it because it's protocol, somebody told them to do it that way. They've been doing it that way and it's been working, so they continue. Everything in racing pigeons, if you want to get better, you have to know what the results are of what you're doing and why. You can't tweak a system unless you know why the system is working. You have to understand why it works.
Or why it works or why it doesn't.
I went over to a friend's house one time and we were flying mediocre. I'm going back like 15 years ago. We were flying mediocre, Cliff and I. By the way, Cliff is a wonderful partner. You'll never meet a nicer person, believe me. You can live to 100 years old, you'll never meet a nicer guy than him. One day, we had a new flyer and he was doing some damage. People couldn't understand it. Go there, look at his birds, they looked awful. He didn't even have a coop. He had a screen like this up against the fence with a tarp over the top of it. And he had tree branches in there for perches. And he had a dirt floor.
Oh God.
And he's clocking and he's beating guys. And guys are scratching their head. People are going over there looking, they're saying, how could this be, right? I go over there and we were friendly. I pick out something that I think is the reason why he's doing so well. Now, Cliff and I used to have a contest. Who could clock more birds in 15 minutes? And he used to beat us all the time. Constantly give him $20 at the end of the week. He was beating us all the time, getting more birds in 15 minutes than we could. So I went over and I picked out what I thought was the reason. Everything else that the book says you should have, he don't have, and he's beating you. So there's got to be a reason. So I went over there and I looked. I'm a little better pigeon guy, more experienced than he was, even though he was beating us. I went over to Cliff's house and I said, listen, this is what we're gonna do. Well, we never looked back because I extracted from him and added to what we do, which was a little bit better, and he never beat us anymore. From that point, now we knew why, and we expanded on it, and every year we would tweak it, make it a little bit better, until we got to the point where we're pretty competitive at this point.
So that's really good. So I want to talk about a real quick diet in regards to molting. Is there a specific diet that you put them on?
I don't do as much as everybody else does. I don't spend a lot of money on vitamins and oils and additives and stuff like that. I buy a very basic feed. I'm a Baden fan. I like Baden feed.
Baden's a very good quality feed. That's from Canada.
What I do is I feed my pigeons a very basic feed, which is the show mix snow corn. I don't feed my pigeons corn. It's a show mix snow corn. And what I like about that mix is it doesn't have any oily seeds in it. The only oily seed in it is safflower, and there's not much oil in it. It's pretty much a dry seed. It's less likely when you're keeping it in a shed or on a roof and the sun's beating down on it,
go bad?
It's less likely to go rancid. It's peas, vetch, white kaffa. I don't like red kaffa, it's white kaffa. Some rice, some just basic grains in here, just grains, no oily seeds, no canary seed or flax or rape. I don't want any of that in my mix.
This is just while you're...
This is always.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Okay.
Always, okay? Now, I will tweak it a little bit. When my birds are breeding, they get that mix, and I'll add some maples
Some maples.
to boost the protein for the young ones in the nest. And all you
Smart.
gotta do is I hopper feed, so when you put the hopper down and you watch them eat, if all the protein seeds are gone right away, you know you need to add maples. So
That's
what
good.
you want to see is when they're done eating, it's almost the same as when you put it in there, the same mixtures. That's how I boost the protein for breeding and for molting. And the birds will tell you, because if they start leaving the maples, back off. They don't want them, they don't need them. They know better than we know. So I do that for breeding, and for my stock birds like these here, they get that mix, but 50% barley. And when I'm not breeding, everybody, including my fancy pigeons, get show mix, no corn,
Yep, I know that mix.
with 50% barley.
Wow, so you incorporate the barley with it?
50% barley right across the board. That's what everybody gets. I don't do anything to get it like that. There's no additives. I'm not buying vitamins and all this stuff, oils and probiotics.
Right.
I don't do any of that.
Okay, no, that's good to know, because you hear some people are like, yes, you got to give them this, but you're more of a simple kind of guy, and you still get the results. That's a lot to be said. I do use it's called, I think, Cal Plus. It's from Varsalaga. I put it in the water. I just kind of mix it in the water.
Listen, it doesn't hurt.
Absolutely. Well, you believe that the calcium is necessary, but they can get it through
Right there,
powder version.
$20 for the year, not $20 a container.
Right.
$20 for the year.
So 2 more questions, and then we'll go over to check out these other birds, guys, that you have to check out. Bats, is that important for their feathers? Like, what would you say about bathing a pigeon?
There's nothing wrong with giving pigeons a bath. I prefer them coming out in the aviary during a rain shower. I don't like when they all pile into the bath and some of them drop their droppings in the water, and the other pigeon comes along and he's drinking it. There is a bug problem. There's, lice and mites and stuff like that. What I found the easiest thing to do is I have to concede the bath once or twice a year, and what I put in the bath water is the ivermectin sheep drench.
Is that a dewormer?
It's a dewormer.
Dewormer, yeah.
I put it in the water, 10 mils to like 2-3 gallons of water. They get in there, it sticks to their plumage, and with that, no bugs.
I thought that was only used for deworming a bird.
Yeah, and if you notice, I showed you a couple of birds. I said, see how clean they are?
Yes.
They hadn't had that for like 6 months.
Really? That's something to be said, guys. These birds that I've been handling are literally squeaky clean. So I guess the last question would be, since we're on the whole thing of molting, how important is that process? Some people probably would say it's not as important.
Well, again, we race young birds. If you're racing old birds, your birds are usually molted out, so they have their plumage. What triggers a pigeon to molt is breeding. So if you breed out of a old bird, let's say you want to get some young ones in January off this old pair, these widowhood cocks are going to fly. Breed around the young ones off of them, and then they come down on eggs 10 days, second set of eggs, and now you're going to separate them because you're going to make them go on the widowhood system. 10 days on eggs, those birds drop their first flight. You started the molt, and now it's just a question of time. The clock is ticking. When he hits the 5th tip, drops the body, you're done. You're not racing. So if you breed out of the pigeon early and he drops his first flight in March, and then the season starts, by the time you get to a month, 2 months away, that bird's done. Can't race no more.
When you say drops the body, you're talking about all the little...
The head, around the ears, the body, the cover flights.
Okay.
You look at the birds, you got no bars.
Small little tiny feathers.
All the body feathers.
Okay. Those are the ones that drive me crazy in the loft.
Yeah.
They're like, forget about it.
But that's what triggers the molt, breeding.
That's more of a natural reaction? Or
that's nature's way of bringing a bird into the molt and into form. Now when a pigeon's molting those first 4 flights, an old bird, especially an old bird, that's when he's in the best form. You can really get the pigeon in great form when they're on the first 4 flights. That's why the Europeans do that. They set up their teams so that they're actually molting those tips during the season, part of the season that they want to race in. So they usually have 2 teams. They have an early team that they let the birds breed earlier, and then they have a second team that they let breed later, so they can finish the season with them. Because when they're molting those first 4 flights, the hormones are going on inside the pigeon. It makes the pigeon come into condition. It makes the pigeon come into form, which is better than condition. Right. When you're breeding, nature makes you the strongest.
Right, because the body has to prepare you to be able to raise these young ones.
Right. That's why a hen sitting 18 days on eggs or up to 5 days on a young one, that's when the hen is feeding the young one. She's got a major role in feeding the young ones from 1 to 7 days. After 7 days, the cock starts kicking in. And he's feeding them those babies the last 2 weeks until they're out of the nest. So the hen, by nature, comes into form when she's on them little babies, and the cock will come into form later when they're on bigger babies. And one of the easiest ways you could tell that is go in your breeding coop and watch your breeders. Telltale sign is when you're watching the hens, watch their feet. Pigeon's feet has got scales on it. You know, you can see them, white little scales.
Like a little dinosaur, yeah.
When a hen's feeding young ones, about 4 days, 5 days, all the scales fall and they're beet red.
Nice bright red.
That hen is in form.
So I didn't know that. So you can use the actual feet to actually get an indication of when the bird is in form.
Right. So the cock, when he's feeding about three-week-old young ones, his feet are bright red. Nature's getting him in top strength to do the biggest job, feeding 2 big young ones in the nest. So you incorporate that with a little bit of conditioning and preparation, he's ready.
And this correlates specifically for old birds, though?
Any bird.
Any bird, okay.
Any bird.
Any bird. So
any bird breeding.
With
any bird breeding.
Breeder, right. So this can happen, like you said, in Belgium with a bird that was bred very early, that comes into like sexual maturity.
Right.
Gotcha. So I lied, and I said I was going to ask you one more question, but before we get over to the one loft birds that we're going to check out, I have, for the first time ever, birds on a 24-hour lighting system. What is your take on a 24-hour lighting system?
I don't like it. I think the pigeons need at least 8 hours of darkness to rest. I don't think a pigeon should be under lights 24 hours. My personal opinion, I know there's guys that do it and they do just fine. I like my pigeons at least 8 hours. And the natural light, the days are getting longer. So every day the days are getting longer, all the way up until June 22nd.
So I get what you're saying. All right, so I mean, I tried something different. I did 16 hours last year. I said maybe the 24 hours, somebody was saying that, you know, when you do cut the lights, they drop their flight feathers faster. So.
Well, they crash. You're taking a bird from 24-hour daylight. You're really stressing the pigeon out. And then you're going to put them on 12 hours of daylight. The bird thinks winter's coming, so he wants the winter coat. He crashes, he drops everything. It's a fine line. It could backfire on you. Your birds could go into a second molt later on in the season.
So there is such a thing as a second molt?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And guys that fly darkening system run into that trouble all the time.
And that's a matter of opinion. Some people like darkening systems.
Listen, racing pigeon game is a matter of opinion. What I always say, it's all about opinion. The guy that's right is the guy that wins on race day. So everybody can have an opinion, but if you're not clocking on race day, I don't care what your opinion is, it doesn't really matter. I do want to add one thing to this segment. I think it'd be very helpful, is the pH level in the loft. pH level in the loft is probably one of the biggest things that people don't know about and they should be concerned about. Paratyphoid, E. coli, Salmonella, they thrive in a neutral pH, which is between 5 and 7. The acidic numbers are lower than 5, and alkaline is higher than 5, up to 10. You can make your loft alkaline, which I've tried over the years, because it's less dangerous. Well, it's like putting lime in your coop, because it's alkaline, and it really kills everything because bacteria can't exist in it because the alkalinity is so high.
So strong, yeah.
Okay? Most of the medications that you give pigeons, they're either alkaline or acidic. That's why they work. You bring that bacteria in that bird to the other side of the spectrum, and that's why it dies off, and then the bird recovers. You can go one way or the other, like elderberry juice. It's alkaline. So if you got bacteria in your pigeons, you give them the alkaline, it's gonna straighten them out. But here's the problem with alkaline. A healthy pigeon, his droppings are naturally acidic. If you alkaline your loft and you give your pigeon alkaline products, as the droppings hit that wood, the wood's like a sponge. So all the moisture, that alkalinity that's in the loft,
absorbs into the wood.
The acid from the droppings, that the healthy pigeon absorbs into the wood and it neutralizes the alkalinity. So I don't go that way. I want to acidify my loft. And then when the healthy droppings hit it, they're just adding more acid to it. So it's easier to maintain an acidic loft than it is an alkalinity loft. And I don't feed my pigeons anything that's alkaline.
That's what I was just going to ask.
All the things that you read in the books that they tell you to give your pigeons, they're alkaline. Garlic, lemons, limes. There's a list. You pull up
the apple cider vinegar.
Well, the apple cider vinegar is, it's acidic. People that use the apple cider vinegar, I say to them, why do you use it? And they say to me, because of its acidic value.